allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'd like to introduce Bob Edwards, our district moderator. If you are a new or returning through election board member, please rise so that Bob can swear you in.
I'm going to ask you to come right up here. I'm going to call your name, okay? William Bright, Town of Antrim. Here. Michael Hoyt, Town of Bennington. Thomas Berlin, Town of Francistown. Dan Harper, Town of Hancock. Dr. Greg Kriegel, Town of Peterborough. And I just would like to know whether Jim Feverson is on the teleconference.
He is not.
He is not. Okay. All right, so I have you all present. I'm going to make a statement first, and then I'm going to administer the oath of office. And at some point, quickly here, I'll ask you to state your name, and at the end of the oath, I would ask you to say, "I will." After we get done that, I'll ask you to sign the documents here. So, is that everybody clear on that? Okay. Whereas, having been elected to the office of school board representative in said town, whereas the subscribers have confidence in your ability and integrity to perform the duties of said office, I hereby appoint you member of the Pawtucket Valley School Board. Upon your taking the oath of office and having this appointment and certificate of said oath of office recorded by the Pawtucket Valley School District Clerk, you shall have the powers to perform the duties and be subject to the liabilities of such office until the expiration of your elected term of office. Given under my hand this 4th day of April, 2023. Now I will go through the oath of office, and we ask you to raise your right hand. I state your name. You solemnly swear or affirm that I will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all duties incumbent upon me as a member of the Pawtucket Valley School Board according to the best of my abilities, agreeable to the rules and the regulations of the Constitution and the laws of the state of New Hampshire, so help me God. Say, "I will," if you agree. I will. Thank you. You are now sworn in, and I would ask you to please sign these documents. I have one for each of you. Congratulations.
Can you cut the most meeting?
Greg Kriegel.
I'm Carl. Nice to meet you. Yes.
Oh,
No, they rotate.
But not me, but I got
It's being synced to this computer. Well, isn't that? Yes, sir.
So what does that mean?
Okay, so I am going to call for the election of the chair. This is a roll call vote. So we'd start with a nomination. Go ahead.
It's an honor and pleasure to nominate Dick Dunning for the position of School Board Chair of the Conval School District.
Second.
I'll second.
Are there any other nominations? If there are, then you didn't follow policy. But are there any other nominations? Okay, seeing none. Roll call vote. We will start with Catherine. Aye. You just
Oh,
need to say a name.
I don't get to, I want to say yes. Catherine.
No, you have to say who you're voting for.
There's only one candidate.
I know.
It's very confusing. Dick Dunning. Yes.
Mr.
Catherine.
Mr. Brick?
My name is correctly pronounced Breik.
Break, I apologize.
And I vote for Mr. Dunning.
Thank you.
I vote for Mr. Dunning as well.
Dick Dunning has my vote.
You want to vote, Dick?
Dick Dunning has my vote.
Dick Dunning.
Dick Dunning.
Well, I had to do a long pros and cons list with all the candidates, and I picked Dick.
Okay, so by a majority vote of the board, I think that was actually unanimous, except for Mr. Frederickson was not here. Congratulations, Dick. You are the new school board chair. I will turn the meeting over to Mr. Dunning.
Thank you all. For the new board members who just got sworn in, your kit bags are out in the back. The jet will pick you up and you'll be headed off to boot camp at the end of the meeting. So anyway, next we have to have a nomination for vice chair. Could I please have a nomination for vice chair? Catherine?
I move that Alan Edelkind serve as vice chair of the Kentucky Valley School Board for the ensuing year.
Could I please have a roll call vote by name?
I'll second that first.
Yes, thank you.
I think I got this now. I vote for Alan Edelkind.
William Breik from Antrim. I vote for Alan Edelkind.
I vote for Alan Edelkind.
Alan Edelkind for VP.
Dick Dunning, I vote for Alan Ellikine.
Greg Grebo for Alan.
Dan Harper, Alan. Corey Allen.
Krista Allen.
Thank you all. Before we go to points of pride, I just want to share with you a piece that I've had for years, and it sort of deals with communication. So, Bob, you might want to just listen to this. You might enjoy it, or you may not, and then you can just get up and leave. But it sort of speaks to things that we hear and how that transforms to an answer down the road. So let me just share with you this piece of information that I was given years ago. It was entitled, "How Clear Are You in Giving Directions?" A school superintendent told his assistant the following: "Next Thursday at 10:30 a.m., Halley's Comet will appear over this area. This is an event which occurs only once every 75 years. Call the school principals and have them assemble their teachers and classes on their athletic fields and explain this phenomenon to them. If it rains, then cancel the day's observations and have the classes meet in the auditorium to see a film about the comet." Pretty clear? The assistant told the school principals, "By order of the superintendent of the schools, next Thursday at 10:30, Halley's Comet will appear over our athletic field. If it rains, then cancel classes and report to the auditorium with your teachers and students, where you'll be shown a film, a phenomenal event which occurs once every 75 years. Of course, the principals then told their teachers, "By order of the phenomenal superintendent of schools at 10:30 next Thursday, Halley's Comet will appear in the auditorium. In case of rain over the athletic field, the superintendent will give another order, something which occurs once every 75 years. Of course, the teachers then shared with the students. Next Thursday at 10:30, the superintendent of the schools will appear in our school auditorium with Halley's Comet, something which occurs every 75 years. If it rains, the superintendent will cancel the comet and order us all out to our phenomenal athletic field." And of course, the students at home to share with their parents. When it rains next Thursday at 10:30 over the athletic field, the phenomenal 75-year-old superintendent of schools will cancel all classes and appear before the whole school in the auditorium, accompanied by Bill Haley and the Comets. So I know, Bob, you know Bill Haley and the Comets. Yeah, all right. So I share that with you because we often hear lots of things. We need to just make sure we have the factual information around the decisions we make as a board. So I share this as light humor, but it's really critical to make sure that we clearly understand what we're voting for and what motions we're making and how we're coming about our decisions. So to make that possible at board meetings, what I'm going to ask is that one person speak at a time. The chair will recognize people and give you your time to present whatever it is you want to do. But for myself, having multiple voices at one time, it's very hard to delineate what people are trying to say or want to say. So just be patient while we work through this. And if you have any concerns about how that operates, just let me know. The other thing is looking at subcommittees. And I sent you all a list of subcommittees. I haven't heard from anyone since I got this list put out. So I would like us to operate under this premise for now. We can certainly adjust this if we need to do that. Ed committee, you'll notice, is not on here as a subcommittee. It will become a, if you will, subcommittee directly to the board. So I'm going to have Ed committee report directly to the board once a month. Education is our number one responsibility, and I think it's important that board members hear directly the information that needs to come out of the education. So Ann and Kimberly and I will make sure that we have an agenda that we can address once a month. The other ones, budget and property, Jim has agreed to meet on the second board meeting of the month before the board meeting. And then we'll have policy meet on the first board meeting of the month, and then communications will meet on the second Tuesday of the month. That leaves just Selectmen Advisory Group, which is on Thursday. Food and Wellness and Equity will also be directly report to the board. That means that we're going to have to make some policy changes, I believe, around the standing committees.
Well, you'll have to, so policy BDE is in here. That will have to go back to policy committee. Policy committee will have to either rewrite it or make recommendations. So that's why I put it under new business.
Okay, so we'll come to that in a moment. The other thing will be the Strategic Organizational Committee, and we'll come to that later on in the agenda, and how that's going to function. So with that said, questions, Krista?
Just one quick question. So just for clarity purposes, are we, based on what you just said, are we just doing policy once a month?
Once a month.
Okay.
Okay,
Kimberly, points of pride?
sure. So at Pierce School, they have been developing some wonderful community partnerships this year. All students and staff attended a field trip last week on voting day to Ben's Sugar Shack to learn more about how maple syrup is made. They then traveled to the Barbara C. Harris Center to conduct experiments with maple syrup, having had taste testings, and made maple leaf jewelry. At FES, students in 3rd and 4th grade completed their biography study. They read, researched, and wrote about their chosen historical figure and then wrote poems about their person. Please be on the lookout throughout the community for the work and a QR code to send the students their feedback. GES students participate in a week-long circus residency with Troy Wonderland that culminated in a performance for families and friends. Students push their comfort limits by learning how to ride unicycles, walk on stilts, balance on padolas, and they had tumblers, jumpers, and hula hoopers. The show ended with all K4 students creating a multi-class human pyramid, a true feat of balance and daring. At Peterborough Elementary School on Thursday and Friday, which will be the 23rd and 24th. PES had 2 family fun fitness nights. Wellness teacher Tanya Morris invited students and their families to PES to learn about the wellness curriculum and participate in some fun, family-friendly physical activities to get their heart rates going. Families left sweaty but smiling. At the high school, 2 senior students, Rowan Davidson and Hattie Linkerick, represented the high school at the New England Music Festival in March. Linkerick sang alto voice in the choir and Davidson played flute in the band. Over 12 students have had their work on display at Mount Wachusett Community College as part of their 37th annual Regional High School Art Exhibition. The following athletes have been awarded the NHIAA, NHADA Scholar Athlete Award. The award goes to multi-varsity sport seniors that demonstrate strong academic standing with an unweighted GPA of a B+ or higher. Those students were Abby Shumway, Allison Hodgson, Avery Swayze, Wyatt Bullier, Harry Bernier, Bryson Boyce, Brianna Decker, Jake Daniels, Eliza Harris, Hayden Kaltsis, Catherine Craig, Kendall Sullivan, Ethan Kinney, Austin Colonel, Laramie Wilson, Lily Mendel, Lydia Cleveland, McKenna Proctor, Morgan Beaumont, Natalie Preble, Carter Russo, Samantha Henderson, and Sophia Hatmaker. So congratulations to all our scholar athletes. And those are the points of pride today.
Thank you, Superintendent. Next on our agenda is the public comment for new board members. At the beginning and the ending of our board meeting, we provide time for public comment. Individuals get up to 2 minutes, and the board can choose to give them extra time if they vote in favor of that. So at this point, do we have anybody in the audience that would like to make a public comment? Seeing none, let's move on to the consent agenda. For new board members, the consent agenda is one that's printed beforehand. It's to bring it to our attention if we need to make any changes in the minutes from the previous meeting, or if you have any questions within the consent agenda. But basically, it's just brought to us for our approval. So when you look at the consent agenda, you have the minutes for March 21st. And then you have personnel with resignations and co-curricular nominations. Are there any questions for the superintendent on the consent agenda? Janine?
I see that there's a preschool teacher and a preschool speech and language, so we're gonna be down 2 preschool teachers now?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any prospects for the speech and language?
I would have to double check with Carrie, but not at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing no other questions, let's go on to the superintendent's report and presentation of business.
Okay,
Please.
so I would like to introduce you to Adam Carragher, who is the new GBS principal. So Adam, please join us at the mic. So Adam, Adam comes to us as a seated principal from Merrimack Middle School. He was one of 6 applicants. 3 were interviewed, and Adam was hands down our most qualified and best fit for GBS. So I'm sure Adam is ready to answer any questions you might have.
Love to.
So my first question, are you a Red Sox fan or a Yankee fan?
Don't answer, don't answer.
So at the risk of self-harm, I'm a Chicago Cubs fan. Thank you.
Wild card.
Excellent answer.
Any other questions? Catherine?
What made you apply to the Conval School District?
it's a wonderful question. I would simply say the idea of new pursuit of a different place to grow and learn and hopefully, help out, overall. So it's just something I was, I guess, looking at and something somebody had mentioned to me at one point, and yeah, it just kind of led from a thought to, well, I need to do this. So, and here we are.
Well, welcome to Conval.
Thank you very much.
We're thrilled to have you here. Thank you. Any other questions from board members? Okay.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you. Thank you much.
So on page 6 of your packet is the voting results. So we were very pleased to have our voting results in the places. The budget, Article 1, the budget passed with 64% of the vote. Article 2 was 71%. Article 3, 71%. Article 4 was 73%. Article 5 was 73%. Article 6 was 68%. Article 7 was 71%. Article 8, 86%, and Article 9 at 77%. So a well-supported warrant. And as always, we thank the local communities for getting out and support in an ongoing way, supporting our budget and our students. We do have some outstanding school board requests for those of you who are new to the board. School board requests are sent to an email called, get ready, school board requests. And so if you have a question or a comment, or really a comment, but if you have questions or need information, those come directly to me. And then I find the appropriate member of the leadership team to give that to, and I get that back to everybody. So the questions are public, as are the answers. I ask, as some of you are new, that you do not directly reach out to SAU members because my job is to direct their work. But if you're also directing their work, that can sometimes lead to some confusion and problems with prioritization. So we have 2 outstanding school board requests. One has to do with an SRO presentation, the other with Charlie the dog. And we will be meeting Charlie the dog shortly. The monthly events calendar, I think, is going to look something different based on what we just heard. So I'm going to hold off on going over that until we have maybe a better understanding of how that's going to work. And the last thing that I have for you today is you all received a Chromebook. You're receiving the Chromebook so that you can efficiently and effectively access the materials that you need and to perform the work related to the district. I would ask that you remember that they are district property and make sure that that is what you are doing with them. Not that you would ever do anything else. So if you have trouble, you can use you log in with your conval.edu account and you'll have everything from Drive. If you want some one-on-one tutorials, please reach out to me and I will set up some time for you with Mark, who left us. And he will get you all set up and feeling comfortable. Okay? Questions? That is all I have today.
So I'd like to go back to the calendar, Kimberly, so that we can get committees meeting. Jim isn't here tonight, so I'm not quite sure whether he's going to be ready for the 18th. But I would guess that policy would probably have some things that they could deal with on the 18th. I realize that's changing a bit, but let's have policy meet. For subcommittees, when you meet for the first time, would you please elect a chair for your committee? I know in years past, sometimes the board chair has chosen chair committees, but I think it's better for the committees to select their own chairs. So if you would do that, and then let Kimberly and me know who your chairs are going to be. So if we could have policy meet on the 18th, Selectmen Advisory, Catherine and Alan to represent us there. If we go to May, policy again would meet, and then we'll have budget and property on the 16th. And then we will have communication on the 9th. And what time would you?
We'd like to have it at 6 o'clock, look for consensus from the people.
Okay. So for the 9th in May, why don't we say 6 o'clock now, and then that committee can make a decision at that point. So hopefully that will help. And then Kimberly and Ann and I will get together and we'll talk about what we can do to get Ed Committee and the other things scheduled in at some point. Krista?
So you're gonna have policy on the second, comms on the 9th, and then, did you say budget and property on the 16th? Okay,
My hope being that you can bring first reads to the board that night, and then we can vote on second reads at that board meeting. And then, whatever might be a first read, we could bring up at the second board meeting for the second read and accomplish that. So first read, second read vote, that first read will come back to a second read at the next board meeting. And then we can vote on it on that second read. Is that making sense to you?
no, but we can talk offline. with
Okay.
that. That's fine.
Janine?
Is there gonna be any discussion about these meetings? I'm having a hard time imagining how we can get policy done in just one meeting a month, considering we're so far behind now. We typically are far behind.
Right. I'd like you to start and see how it works out. If we need to do something different, I'm open for that. But let's see if we can't make this work this way. My goal is to try to minimize the nights that board members and administrators have to be out. If we can make this work, then it'll help us accomplish that. If we can't, we'll look at some other strategy to make it work. So at least let us try it for a couple months and see how it works.
Okay.
We have a high school representative, but tonight she's not here, but generally she'll report. I'd also like to, when we come back to a new agenda, put the student rep early on in the agenda, so the person can present to us, and then if she has to leave for an event or homework or testing, that she can do that. We'll also leave it up to the student rep to decide when they would like to leave. I'm not trying to give them a dust off, but I'd like to get them in and out as soon as possible if we can do that. So next time around, we'll move them up on the agenda. Alan, communications?
Okay, in the communications committee, we talked about 3 different items. The first one was, needless to say, the community forum. And the best thing about them is the presentations. And I want to thank again Liz, Kimberly, Catherine, and Jim for excellent presentations on the budget. That's all I've heard, with great things about. Some people wanted it at a high level, some people went all the way down to detail, and everything was covered in there. Now, the one thing we did find is that there was low in-house and online attendance. And we talked about this quite a bit in the meeting. And there's a bunch of different takes on it. All of them, I believe, are valid. Is number one is people were happy with the budget and really didn't find a need to attend. I mean, we're sitting there with most people knowing at 1.35% on the operational budget. So that was one thing. The other thing too is that people were overwhelmed with all the financial news that has been going on. And it's sort of like burnout sometimes. So it's sort of like, okay, I've heard enough. The other thing that we're going to deal with is the communication to the public about the forum. The thing we're finding out is that it's great to have beautiful presentations, but in this day and age, things are starting to change. It's an ever-changing world of communications. You got social media, you got websites, you got different channels. It's no longer just providing good information, but also how to deliver the information. We're lucky to have people on the communications committee, namely Liz, who in turn know how to do this delivery. And we will get better at this because we will, needless to say, be having a lot more of the forums. Communications on the Strategic Organization Committee. The communication is done. The first pass of the review has been done by the members of the committee and also administration. We will be sending this out to the rest of the board so they can look at it and they can have input to what they think about this communication. And then we will determine how and when we're going to distribute this communication about the Strategic Organization Committee. Third thing we talked about is the monthly school board community communications. There was a discussion around the need for the school board to communicate to the community on school board activities. Consensus was yes, it's a good idea. And the feeling is it should be a short, to-the-point communication after each board meeting. Not immediately after, but maybe a day or so after. It could be a voiceover video, written communications, etc. Be done on a rotating board member basis and we'll present to the board for review when the activity is finalized. So those were the 3 items that I put down that were important to the meeting. Questions?
Thank you, Alan. Selectmen Advisory, Janine?
Selectmen Advisory Committee was interesting from the point of view that one of the things that Tim Theberge tried to do was encourage the select board members to share information about what was going on in their towns over and above school board information or the schools. Generally, they just come to this meeting to get information about the schools, but they've actually moved beyond that to start sharing information about what's going on in the town. And a good example of this is Bill Kennedy shared that a student from the high school had contacted him as part of a project at the high school called Call to Action. And he was able to share information about Peterborough's prep plan, which started a conversation among the SAC committee about the community energy programs and community that are starting out in many places. She was interested in recycling, the recycling program, and happily Tim Grassi was there and he shared the recycling program that's been going on in the district since 2009 with great detail. And they shared a lot of information about the respective community power plans, which help those communities that haven't started down this road yet. Peterborough has gotten pretty far on that. They shared information, Alan shared information on the March 6th Community Forum. Mike Borden of Greenfield requested, again, this is a request that comes up all the time, that the tax rates get to the town by October 15th, which isn't possible, but there was a good discussion about what the process is in order to set those rates and what it takes to get them to the town, and there was a general understanding that it would be better in the future, hopefully. Carol Monroe inquired about the RFP and whether there will be an opportunity for towns to participate, and it will be on the April agenda to provide more information to the towns, the select board, so they can take that back to the towns, and they were assured that they would be a part, they would have an opportunity to participate. Our superintendent reminded people that the trial for adequacy was starting on April 10th. This would, and speaking of tax rates, this would have the decision that comes out of this trial would have a very big impact on tax bills, helping people to make that connection. there was a discussion about, then there was discussion about the shared bathroom policy at the high school. The superintendent described how the policy protects, all of the, students in the high school. And that was it.
Thank you, Janine. For new board members, a number of years ago, we had a warrant article request to take a look at the strategy behind reconstructing, closing schools, consolidation, many terms have been used. So we have put forward a request for information from companies to come in and assist us. The goal being to have a neutral view from an outside source to come in, gather the information. We have our RFP. We've sent it out. We have 3 companies that we have sent it to. We're looking forward to their responses to that. Once we get that back and we know who's interested, we'll make the board aware of who they are. We'll give the RFPs out to all of you so that you can see them. And then once that's done, we will look to bring forward a company that will come in and assist us. Our goal is to get this done within 6 to 8 months. One of the things that we need to do as a goal, as a board, is set goals for the coming year. One of those really needs to be around looking at consolidation. So this will be a huge piece for us to be able to address an issue that existed here for a number of years and hopefully bring it to some kind of closure, so that we can either bring forward a warrant article next year or not, depending upon the results of whatever the company brings back to the board for us to look at for making the decision. So hopefully that is helpful. There'll be other things that come along that you may not know what we're talking about. Just raise your hand. That could even be for board members who've been here. Sometimes can go over even our heads. So just raise your hands and we'll get clarification on that.
Okay, so in your packet is policy BDE. I believe that is under the only thing under new business. Mr. Dunning has recommended changes to the policies, the committee structure. Committee structure is outlined in policy BDE, so you guys will need to decide whether or not you want that policy to go to the policy committee for potential changes.
Do you need a motion?
We'll need a motion.
So for purpose of discussion, I move that we send policy BDE to the policy committee to study our school board member committees and special duty assignments.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second from Greg. Any discussion to bring it forward to policy? Janine?
Can I suggest that, since you've already proposed changes, you've proposed a different rearrangement, it doesn't make sense for it to go to policy until we've tried out these changes, because otherwise you're gonna, you're gonna put like what you proposed in policy before we know whether it's gonna work or not. So why don't we, wait until we've tried this out, give it a ride, and then we can send it to policy to set it in stone.
I'd be okay with that if in fact we can actually do that. We have a policy that says we need to operate a certain way, so I don't think we can do that without changing the policy.
Okay. Kimberly's
And,
there.
we're not, it's a matter of having a discussion, it's a matter of policy bringing it forward, and a matter of the board making the decision. The board can change their decisions whenever they feel it's necessary to do that. We're not in concrete here. Some things we don't have a choice on, but most things we do. Kimber?
So in order to do that, you would need to suspend your policy, and that's policy BGF. If you want to do that, then you would have to have a you would have to have a unanimous vote because you didn't notice it. Or you could
Right.
wait until the next meeting and just
Right.
notice it.
So correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Dunning and Dr. Saunders, but I believe the only change that is being put forward, other than scheduling changes, is the Ed Committee. Am I correct?
It would be Ed Committee, Equity, and Food and Wellness would all come under being presented directly to the board.
So food and wellness appears to be a subcommittee. So I
Correct,
don't
so
think that-
that's
I
not
don't-
gonna be
I
an
don't
issue.
think it's an issue.
Yep.
And it says under committee organization, each committee has 4 members. So if the chair appoints all of us as members of the committee, I think you have a workaround and you don't have to change anything.
I'm certainly open for discussion if that's going to work. Catherine, any thoughts on that?
I do have a thought on that. So that is a neat workaround, Greg. I always appreciate out of the box thinking, but a committee, probably by definition, would be a subset of the larger group. So I think that that would, might not meet the legal test because we would not be a subsuit. We would be the entire group. So it's usually a smaller group bringing forward information back to the full board for consideration. So I would be comfortable bringing this to policy committee to decide how we would like to, move forward and come back with a recommendation to the full board. And at that time, because we'll be meeting soon, we can then certainly suspend policy or do whatever we need to do after there's discussion. And we can certainly have discussion this evening as well.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion before I bring it forward for Dan?
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand Greg's, it's because my first meeting. If everyone is assigned to a subcommittee, are there still 4 members of that committee that are considered the core?
Catherine?
I think this policy, it's an optional policy. I think we have it because it communicates to the public how we function and our structure, but it is absolutely the board's decision on how we choose to operate, and one board certainly does not tie another board, and we can even amongst ourselves in our own elected year, change our course on something like this, because it's a board policy that affects the board and certainly the members of the administration who have to attend all these meetings. So it really is within our purview to restructure however we see fit and communicate that back to the public through policy.
Other questions? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second on the floor to bring this to policy, to bring about the changes. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye and raising your hand, please. All opposed? Abstentions? All right, 100%. Thank you. Before we go to our next offering for public comment, one of my goals would be as chair to make sure our meetings we try to stop at 9 o'clock on a bad night. If we have to go to 9:30, I'll entertain that. But after 9:30, we need to stop operating as a board. Late at night is not the time we should be making decisions. So our goal is to get in, get our business done, and be finished by 9. The chair will entertain going till 9:30, but the goal is to get to 9. If that doesn't work and we need to look at it differently, then we can do that. But Kimberly and I will sit and try to go through this agenda and make sure that we can accomplish our tasks in a timely fashion in an effective way to make sure that we meet that goal. This is our Catherine.
I was just wondering if I could give you a brief legislative update that's, I think, quite important prior to moving on through the agenda since we're under new business, Mr. Chairman.
Please do.
So the full House will vote on the budget on Thursday, and there's been a lot of developments and many amendments being proposed on the floor of the House. But Last week, the House Finance Committee made some significant changes to education. I did share them with the superintendent, and they were finalized by the committee and were incorporated into the recommendation for House Bill 2. So some of those include expanding eligibility for the Freedom of Education accounts to 350% of the poverty level. It was at 300% currently. And it having only a one-time income test, meaning you never have to reapply or approve income again after the first time you're eligible. It eliminates the cap entirely for targeted school populations. And the governor's population, of course, was to have a 500% income cap. So I think this is a little bit of a negotiation, but it certainly expands those accounts. It eliminates school building aid appropriation of $75 million scheduled to end on 2025 in the governor's proposal. But it does permit charter public schools to access school building aid moving forward. It boosts additional per pupil aid to charter schools to $4,300. It adds $4.4 million to tuition and transportation to public schools. So I don't know what our transportation budget is, but spread that across the state. Removes the appropriation for New Hampshire Civics Commission and textbooks, adds Medicaid direct certification for free meal students, free and reduced meal students, and sets aside $30 million during the biennium to adjust for potential additional free and reduced lunch students. In addition, they are proposing to essentially eliminate the Education Trust Fund by taking the $183.8 million in the Education Trust and at the end of state fiscal year 23, the surplus that's anticipated. And by 2025, it'll be in a $42.6 million deficit. The goal is to have the general fund run all of the educational expenses. However, it's important to note that currently, if the Education Trust ever did go into deficit, the general fund is required to pick up that deficit, but this would be a whole new way on how changing revenues from how business profit tax and business enterprise tax go in or are divided between Education Trust and the general fund. So that is, it won't change any funding. So there's no funding from state source changes. It's just the way the funds will be accounted for, but setting aside those funds, seeing that's the largest part of the state budget is education. That comes back to political subdivisions. That's just certainly interesting. Again, under current law, our base per pupil aid is $3,866 under current law. The governor proposed $4,700, and the House Finance Committee did leave it at $4,700. They did move up free and reduced price meal eligibility to $2,500 per pupil. Special education, a $21 increase, I'll just say it that way, to $2,100, but the number was $2,079. So let's just make sure we're clear on it's $21. A $43 increase on English as a language learner, and the extraordinary need grants, increasing the maximum grant has been proposed in the House Finance Committee, and basically, the entire estimated aid under current law right now, as it stands, is $962 million, and the governor's proposal went up to $1,017 million, and House Finance will go to $1,035 million. So a small increase in House Finance, but a very different way to get there. So that's all I have. Just want you to be aware, so if anyone wants to write to their representatives or their elected officials and share with them any concerns you might have, it's certainly probably warranted.
Catherine, if you would send to the new board members those contact websites that you shared with us so they can write individually to legislatures if they're interested.
So Catherine, you had shared with me the proposed breakdown to districts who would increase, who would decrease. So those also part of that.
That amendment thankfully did not pass. As you could see, that funding proposal did not benefit the communities most in need. So that did not pass. However, there is a floor amendment to bring a similar proposal back. So, more to come.
So just for, the reason I'm asking is because the communities that were receiving the largest increases are also those communities that are the wealthiest across across the state, and places that are considered the most in need were receiving little to nothing, including some of our most needy communities. The trial starts Monday.
Anyone have questions for Catherine? Catherine, sort of our insight at the state and what's happening with the politicians. So, Janine?
Catherine, the Whaler Amendment, Weiler, Weyler, is that still in there?
Yes, the Weiler Amendment is the one to decrease the surplus.
And move like building aid and
Yes, I can
special
send-
education?
Yeah, I can send you all the detail on that when I send everything out. I'll just send it to the full board.
Okay.
And everybody can have everything at once, and I'll send you all the documents that are relevant right now.
Let's move to our second non-public, public comment. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to the board? Seeing none. The next is approval of manifest. I spoke to Kimberly, and what we'd like to do in the future is move the manifest to the beginning of the agenda so that when we get to the end, we make sure we have accomplished getting the manifest approved. So for tonight, it'll be here, but in the future, we'd like to move it up further in the agenda. So it will be one of the things we do right away. When the manifest is presented, two members of the board check all manifests that come out. It will be in the future, I'm looking for Catherine and Jim Frederickson to continue to do that. Being board chair, I won't be doing that, although I still will look at them, but you need to have those approved. What's important to both for Jim and Catherine, that as soon as they're up, they get them approved so they can get the payments out. And that's really critical. So one of the major roles is, I was on that every day to make sure if there was anything that we could get the improvement. And so if Catherine, Jim's is doing that now, so if you would be willing to do that in the future, and Kimberly, if you'd make that recommendation change on the email. And then when the manifest needs to be approved, it'll either be Catherine or Jim who move it and second it because they're the ones who are most knowledgeable on it. Doesn't have to be, but that's what we'd like to practice. Catherine?
So I just wanted to add that this is a statutory requirement by the state that either the entire board approves the manifest prior to, or two board members can be assigned. So this is not just a Conval procedure. This is state law requirements.
And I'm sure if you all would like to read those manifests, we'd be glad to add you to the email list. Just let me know. All right. Can we have the manifest, please?
All right, I certify that the manifest totaling $1,489,081.70 has been reviewed by me and found to be proper charges against the Kentucket Valley School District for goods and/or services received and have been properly processed prior to their submittal to the school board.
Could I have a motion for approval?
So move.
Can I have a second? It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Abstentions. It passes 100%. We do have some non-public sessions. So for new board members, when we go into non-public, you have to acknowledge that by, once we vote yes, by reciting your name. So we practiced earlier, so you all should be fine now. You've already done it. I'd like to have a motion to move into non-public session under RSA 91-A:3, 2, Roman numeral. I've had, it's been moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Could we have a roll call, please? We'll now be in non-public. Thank you. Thank you for those who came tonight. Krista?
Can we just remind the new board members, if you want to keep what's in your spinach colored folder, spinach colored, you can keep